She was HR's golden girl, their shining star who could do no wrong. I was just the R&D team lead who'd built their core technology from scratch. When they kicked us out of our offices to make room for her, they thought they'd put me in my place. They didn't know the patent that kept their entire company alive had my name on it, and I knew exactly when, where, and how to use it to bring them to their knees. My name is Alexandra Quinn, Alex to anyone who's worked with me longer than a week, and I should have known something was wrong the moment I stepped off the plane from Geneva. The International Neuroscience Conference had been a triumph. 3 standing ovations for our breakthrough in neural signal processing, 2 acquisition offers I'd politely declined, and 1 very persistent venture capitalist who'd slipped his card into my laptop bag with a number that made my eyes water. I'd spent the entire flight back to San Francisco rehearsing how I'd share the good news with my team. Marcus would probably cry the gentle giant always got emotional about recognition. Sarah would demand we celebrate with that ridiculously expensive bourbon she'd been saving. And Tom, our youngest engineer, would probably just grin and say, "I told you we'd change the world, boss." But when I pushed open the door to our wing at Neurovis Innovations that Monday morning at 8:30, coffee in hand, and success still buzzing in my veins, I found myself staring at blank walls and empty desks. Not just empty stripped, the walls that had held our patents, our awards, our ridiculous collection of team photos from every product launch, all gone. The specialized equipment I'd spent 2 years acquiring, piece by piece, nowhere to be seen. Even the coffee machine, the Italian beast that Tom had named Lucia and treated like a beloved pet, had vanished. "Alex," Marcus's voice came from behind me, uncertain and confused. "You're back early. I thought your flight wasn't until—" He stopped mid-sentence as he saw what I was seeing, or rather, what we weren't seeing. "Where the hell is everything?" Sarah's voice cut through the silence as she arrived, her heels clicking aggressively on the polished floor. Behind her, Tom and the rest of the team began filtering in, each face registering the same progression of confusion, disbelief, and anger. "There must be some mistake," I said, though my gut was already telling me otherwise. In 15 years of working in tech, I'd learned to recognize corporate maneuvering when I saw it. This had all the hallmarks of a calculated move. The answer came in the form of Derek, the head of facilities, who appeared with the studied casualness of someone who'd been waiting for us to arrive. His smile was apologetic, but his eyes remained carefully neutral, the look of middle management carrying out orders they didn't create but wouldn't question. "Alex, welcome back. Great conference. I heard—" He didn't wait for my response. "So, there's been a small reorganization while you were away. Nothing major. Your team's been relocated to Building C." Building C, the old manufacturing wing, the place where they kept surplus inventory and outdated equipment, the place where careers went to die. "Relocated," I repeated, keeping my voice level. "And our equipment. Already moved, everything set up and waiting for you." His smile stretched wider, faker. "It's actually quite spacious, much more room for your projects." I could feel my team's eyes on me, waiting to see how I'd respond. In that moment, I had 2 choices: make a scene and give them the satisfaction of seeing me rattled, or play along and gather information. "I see," I said, taking a slow sip of my coffee, "and I assume there's a reason our previous space was needed so urgently." Derek's relief at my calm response was palpable. "Oh, yes, we're onboarding a new specialist. Very exciting addition to the company. HR and the executive team are really enthusiastic about the fresh perspective she'll bring. I look forward to meeting her," I said, the lie sliding smoothly off my tongue. "Building C, you said." "Through the sky bridge, past the cafeteria, down to the lower level. Can't miss it." As Derek scurried away, I turned to my team. "Let's go see our new accommodations." The walk to Building C felt like a funeral procession. The sky bridge offered a view of the parking lot where my reserved spot earned after 10 years with the company was now occupied by a cherry-red Tesla with a custom license plate, InnoVT1. Building C was worse than I'd imagined. The fluorescent lights flickered with the telltale buzz of aging ballasts. The air smelled of rust and industrial cleaner. Our spacious new lab was a converted storage area with concrete walls and no windows, tucked between the loading dock and the archives. Water stains decorated the ceiling like abstract art, and I could hear the HVAC system's death rattle echoing through the vents. But our equipment was there, hastily arranged and still partially boxed. My team stood in the doorway, and I saw the defeat already creeping into their shoulders. "This is bullshit," Tom said, his usual optimism nowhere to be found. "This is temporary," I corrected, though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. "Let's get set up. We have work to do." As my team reluctantly began unpacking, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the weekend's company emails. There it was, sent Friday at 4:45 p.m., when they knew I'd be in the air. "Please join us in welcoming Sienna Vale to the Neurovis family." The corporate speak was thick enough to choke on. Transformative leader, innovative approach, exciting new chapter, but it was the last line that made my blood run cold. Sienna will be taking over the primary R&D space to launch her groundbreaking initiatives. My space, my lab, my team's home for the last 5 years. I looked around at the dungeon they'd relegated us to, at my brilliant team trying to make the best of this insult, and felt something cold and calculated click into place in my mind. They wanted to play corporate games, fine, but they'd forgotten one crucial detail in their little reorganization. The patent that powered 90% of Neurovis's value, the neural mapping algorithm that made our entire product line possible, that patent had my name on it. And the licensing agreement I'd signed when I joined had some very specific clauses about usage, access, and modification. Clauses that I was betting nobody in HR had bothered to read. I met Sienna Vale 3 days later. Though met might be too generous a word for what actually happened. She swept into our dungeon at 11:15 a.m. with an entourage that included Derek from facilities, Patricia from HR, and our CEO. Richard Blackstone, a man who hadn't set foot in the actual R&D areas in the 2 years since his golf buddy on the board had appointed him. The clicking of designer heels on concrete announced their arrival before they appeared. Sienna was everything Central Casting would order for disruptive innovator, 28 years old, Harvard MBA, prominent on her LinkedIn, blonde hair styled in that carefully messy way that probably cost $300, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She wore a white blazer that would last about 30 seconds in any real lab, paired with jewelry that cost more than Tom's yearly salary. "So this is where the magic happens," she announced, her voice carrying that particular tone of forced enthusiasm that meant she'd already dismissed us as irrelevant. Her gaze swept over our cramped space, our jury-rigged equipment setup, and my team in their practical clothes and tired faces. I saw her nose wrinkle slightly at the musty smell we'd been trying to combat with industrial fans. Richard cleared his throat. "Sienna wanted to tour all the R&D facilities, get a sense of the whole operation. Sienna, this is Alexandra Quinn and her team. They handle some of our legacy projects." Legacy projects, the neural mapping system that generated $70 million in revenue last quarter, was now a legacy project. How wonderful. Sienna's smile widened as she extended a manicured hand that I briefly considered not taking. "I've heard so much about your little team. It must be so rewarding, maintaining the old systems while people like us push toward the future." People like us, as if she and Richard were somehow cut from the same innovative cloth. "We do our best," I replied, shaking her hand with exactly the amount of pressure that conveyed professional courtesy and nothing more. "I heard you'll be working on some groundbreaking initiatives. What area of neural processing will you be focusing on?" The question was a test, and she failed it spectacularly. "Oh, disrupting the whole paradigm," she said, waving her hand vaguely. "We're going to leverage synergies across multiple verticals, really drill down into the blockchain possibilities of neural interfaces." Blockchain, neural interfaces. I felt Sarah suppress a snort behind me. "Blockchain," I repeated slowly, "for neural signal processing." "Exactly." She beamed as if I'd validated her genius. I knew you'd get it. Richard says you're quite technically minded for someone of your generation. The condescension dripped like honey from a poisoned comb. I was 42, not 90, and I had 2 PhDs she'd apparently never bothered to Google. Patricia jumped in, ever the HR cheerleader. Sienna's already made such an impact. She's redesigned the entire workspace to promote creative thinking. You should see it: meditation pods, a juice bar, standing desks that adjust automatically based on your biorhythms. Biorhythm adjusting desks, Marcus muttered under his breath, because that's what neural mapping needed. Richard's eyes narrowed slightly at Marcus, then turned back to me. Actually, but, Alex, we'll need you to prepare a full technical briefing for Sienna by end of week. She'll be taking the lead on presenting our Q3 innovations to the board, and she needs to understand, what is it you call it? The baseline architecture. The fundamental neural mapping algorithm, I corrected. The patented process that underlies our entire product suite. Right, that, he waved dismissively. Just put together something simple. Maybe some PowerPoints with graphics. Sienna's more of a visual learner. I felt Tom tense beside me. That algorithm had taken me 3 years to develop, another 2 to refine, and explaining it to someone who thought blockchain belonged anywhere near neural processing would be like teaching calculus to someone who struggled with addition. Of course, I said smoothly. Though the algorithm is quite complex, it might take more than a few days to create comprehensive training materials. Sienna laughed, a tinkling sound that grated like nails on glass. Oh, I'm sure it's not that complicated. I mean, if you could figure it out. She trailed off, the implication hanging in the air like a toxic cloud. You're right, I agreed, my smile sharp enough to cut. I'm sure someone with your obvious expertise in blockchain neural interfaces will have no trouble grasping the mathematics involved. I'll include all the differential equations and matrix transformations. You're comfortable with nonlinear dynamics, I assume. Her smile flickered for just a moment. Of course. Richard checked his Rolex, the universal signal of an executive who'd graced the peasants with enough of his time. Excellent. Sienna, we should head back up. The architects are coming at noon to discuss the plans for the Innovation Lab. Innovation Lab. Sarah couldn't help herself. Patricia beamed. Oh yes, we're converting the old conference room into a state-of-the-art innovation space for Sienna's team. It's going to be amazing VR stations, holographic displays, even a coffee bar with a barista trained in molecular gastronomy. The old conference room, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows, the one directly above the space my team used to occupy. As they prepared to leave, Sienna turned back, her expression one of practiced concern. Oh, Alexandra. I heard about the space issue. Such a shame about the mix-up. But honestly, this seems more appropriate for your kind of work, less distracting. You know, very authentic. Authentic. Like we were some kind of industrial revolution reenactment. After they left, trailing perfume and pretension, my team stood in stunned silence. Did she actually say blockchain neural interfaces? Tom finally asked. She did, I confirmed. And Richard wants her to present our work to the board, Marcus added, disbelief coloring his voice. He does. Sarah slammed her laptop shut. This is insane. She doesn't know the first thing about neural processing. She probably thinks neurons are a type of pasta. I walked over to my desk, a rickety thing that wobbled whenever I typed, and pulled out my personal laptop, the one not connected to the company network. You're right. She doesn't understand the technology. So what do we do? Tom asked. I opened the laptop and navigated to a folder I hadn't accessed in years. The original patent documentation, the licensing agreement, the clauses I'd insisted on when I was young and paranoid and convinced someone would try to steal my work. Turns out, young Alex was smarter than I'd given her credit for. We give her exactly what she asked for, I said, looking at each of my team members in turn. A complete technical briefing on the neural mapping algorithm, every equation, every transformation, every single dependency and requirement. Marcus caught on first, a slow smile spreading across his face, including the proprietary modules. especially the proprietary modules. But she won't understand any of it, Tom protested. No, I agreed, pulling up the clause about third-party access and unauthorized technology transfer. She won't, but she'll pretend she does, and when she presents it to the board, when she claims ownership of innovations she can't even explain. Sarah picked up the thought, her grin sharpening. She'll bring about her own downfall. Blockchain neural interfaces, I muttered, shaking my head. Let's see her disrupt her way out of that. Building a team isn't about collecting resumes or LinkedIn endorsements. It's about finding people whose broken pieces fit together with yours to create something unbreakable. Over 5 years at Neurovis, I'd assembled exactly that. Marcus Washington was my first hire, poached from Microsoft's accessibility division where he'd been languishing despite holding 3 patents in adaptive technology, at 6'4" with hands that could palm a basketball. He looked like he'd wandered into the wrong building, but those same hands could perform microsurgery on circuit boards. He'd followed me from my previous company without hesitation when I'd called him at 2:30 a.m. with the Neurovis offer. You know how they see me, he'd said during that call. Big black guy must be the diversity hire, right? No one expects me to be the one solving the impossible problems. Their loss, I'd replied. My gain. Sarah Rodriguez came next, stolen from Apple's Skunkworks division. Brilliant, abrasive, and allergic to corporate politics. She'd been written up 3 times for communication issues, corporate speak for refusing to dumb down her ideas for executives who thought they understood technology because they owned an iPhone. I'd offered her complete creative freedom and the promise that I'd handle all the political nonsense. She'd accepted before I'd finished talking. Tom Nguyen was my wild card, fresh from MIT with recommendations that called him unfocused and too theoretical. What they meant was he saw connections others missed, could link disparate concepts in ways that seemed insane until suddenly they weren't. I'd found him at a recruiting event, ignored by the Google and Meta recruiters because his GPA was only 3.7 instead of 4.0. Their metrics missed what I saw immediately: hunger and brilliance looking for a home. The others had similar stories. David, the former Navy communications specialist, who could make any system talk to any other system, regardless of compatibility. Jennifer, the materials scientist, who'd been relegated to quality control at her last job because she'd refused her manager's advances. Roberto, the data analyst who'd been passed over for promotion 5 times because his accent was too thick for client presentations. Each of them had been discarded by the system, labeled as difficult or inadequate, or just not quite right, but I knew better. I'd been that person once told I was too aggressive, too technical, too unwilling to play the game. So I'd built a team of misfits and given them something the corporate world never would respect and purpose. We'd worked 18-hour days together during product launches, shared Chinese takeout at 3 a.m. while debugging code, celebrated breakthroughs with champagne and coffee mugs. When Jennifer's daughter had been diagnosed with leukemia, we'd all donated vacation days so she could be at the hospital. When Tom's student loans had threatened to crush him, I'd gone to bat with HR for an advance on his bonus. We weren't just colleagues. We were a unit. The neural mapping algorithm that now powered Neurovis's entire product line that had been born during one of our late-night sessions. Tom's theoretical framework meeting Sarah's practical application. Marcus's accessibility insights, creating new pathways. All of it guided by my vision of what neural processing could become. The patent might have my name on it, a detail I'd insisted on before joining Neurovis, but the innovation belonged to all of us. Remember when Richard called our first prototype cute? Sarah asked one afternoon in our bunker, her voice cutting through my memories. She was calibrating equipment with unnecessary force. Said it was a nice little science project, but asked when we'd have something commercially viable. 6 weeks later, we landed the Pentagon contract, Marcus added, not looking up from his workstation. Suddenly we weren't so cute anymore. No, I agreed. We were profitable, which in Richard's world is the only metric that matters. Until someone younger and blonder comes along, Jennifer muttered. I watched my team work in our subterranean exile. noted the determined set of their shoulders despite the indignity of our situation. They could have left. Every one of them had standing offers from competitors I knew, because I'd helped some of them negotiate better retention bonuses by leveraging those offers. But they stayed. "Why haven't any of you jumped ship?" I asked suddenly. Tom looked up, surprised. "Are you kidding? And missed the show?" "What show?" David grinned. "Come on, boss. We know you. You don't take hits lying down. You're planning something." "We've seen that look before," Roberto added. "Same one you had before you destroyed that VP who tried to steal credit for the neural bridge project." "I didn't destroy him," I protested. "I simply ensured accurate attribution." "He works at a Radio Shack in Nebraska now," Sarah pointed out. "They still have Radio Shacks." Marcus set down his tools and looked at me directly. "We're here because you've always had our backs, every single time. When the company tried to outsource David's position, you threatened to walk. When they wanted to pass Jennifer over for lead engineer because of optics, you raised hell until they backed down. You hired me when no one else would even interview me," Tom added. "Gave me a chance to prove the theoreticals could work." "And more importantly," Sarah said, her cynical armor cracking slightly, "you've never taken credit for our work. Every patent filing, every paper, every presentation our names are on them. Do you know how rare that is?" I did know. I'd spent 10 years having my work attributed to male colleagues. My ideas presented as team efforts, where my name somehow got forgotten. I'd sworn that when I had the power, I'd do better. "Besides," Jennifer added with a sharp smile, "we want front row seats when you take down the blockchain princess." "I'm not taking anyone down," I said carefully, aware that even in our bunker, walls could have ears. "I'm simply ensuring that everyone understands the full complexity of our technology." "Right," David said, heavy on the sarcasm. "And I'm sure it's just coincidence that you've been reviewing patent law every lunch break." "And updating your LinkedIn profile," Tom added. "And having coffee with that headhunter from Medisynaptics," Roberto finished. I raised an eyebrow. "You've been watching me." "We're your team," Marcus said simply. "It's what we do." I looked around at these brilliant, loyal people who'd chosen to follow me into corporate exile rather than abandon ship, who'd built something extraordinary with me and were now being treated like obsolete equipment. "Hypothetically," I said slowly, "if I were planning something, I'd need to know you were all protected, your jobs, your projects, your futures." "Hypothetically," Sarah replied, "we'd trust you to handle it, like you always have." "But also hypothetically," Tom added with a grin, "we've all been backing up our work to personal drives, just in case." "And hypothetically," Marcus said, "I might have documented every single instance of our technology being accessed from IP addresses that trace back to the executive floor, with timestamps." Jennifer pulled out a folder that had been hidden under her keyboard. "And completely hypothetically, here's a list of every violation of standard protocol in Sienna's hiring and positioning. Patricia in HR is very chatty after 2 margaritas." I stared at my team, my brilliant, devious, magnificent team. I said finally, "Sienna called us a little team working on legacy projects." "She also said blockchain neural interfaces," David reminded us, with a straight face. "She did," I agreed, feeling the pieces of my plan click into place. "And in 3 days, she's going to present our technology to the board, our algorithms, our innovations, our 5 years of blood and sweat." "But she doesn't understand any of it," Tom said. "No," I smiled, and this time it was all teeth. "She doesn't, but she's about to learn that there's a difference between occupying someone's space and understanding what made it valuable." Marcus cracked his knuckles. "So what do you need from us?" "Everything," I said. "Every piece of documentation, every test result, every proof of concept, and I need it organized, verified, and legally airtight." "Why?" Jennifer asked, though her grin suggested she already knew. "Because when someone violates the terms of a patent license by sharing proprietary information with unauthorized personnel, the patent holder has certain rights, And when that patent holder happens to own the technology that generates 70% of the company's revenue, game over, Sarah finished. Checkmate, I corrected. But first, we need to let her make her move. The email arrived Tuesday at 9:45 a.m., marked urgent, with that red exclamation point that Richard loved to abuse. Alexandra, change of plans. The board has moved up their quarterly review. Sienna will be presenting the Neural Mapping Innovation Portfolio Thursday at 2 p.m. Please ensure she has all necessary materials by end of business today. RB. Today, they wanted 5 years of revolutionary work condensed into digestible chunks for someone who thought blockchain belonged in neural processing by close of business today. Boss, you seeing this? Marcus called out, his own laptop pinging with the CC. I see it, I replied, already drafting my response. Professional, accommodating, and with just enough buried concerns to cover my ass when everything went sideways. Richard, I'll compile the materials immediately. However, given the complexity of the neural mapping algorithm and its dependencies, I strongly recommend scheduling a technical walkthrough. The mathematical foundations alone require significant context. Should I also include the proprietary source code modules, Alex? His response was almost instant. Just the highlights. Make it visual. Sienna will handle the technical details. I almost felt sorry for him, almost. By noon, I'd prepared the most comprehensive technical briefing of my career. Every equation, every dependency, every intricate piece of the algorithm that had taken me years to develop, but I'd followed Richard's instructions to the letter. I'd made it visual. Flowcharts with enough complexity to make your eyes bleed, diagrams that required 3 engineering degrees to interpret, and buried in slide 47 of 93. The critical dependency notice that our entire system relied on proprietary modules covered under my personal patent. This is sadistic, Sarah said, looking over my shoulder at a particularly dense slide about quantum probability matrices in neural state predictions. This is exactly what they asked for, I corrected. Complete technical documentation of our innovation portfolio. The presentation was delivered to Sienna at 4:30 p.m., along with a helpful note. Here's everything you need for Thursday's board meeting. I've included all technical details as requested. Please let me know if you need clarification on any of the mathematical proofs. A. Wednesday morning brought chaos. My phone rang at 6:15 a.m. Sienna. Panic barely contained beneath a veneer of authority. Alexandra, this presentation, it's not what I expected. Oh, I kept my voice neutral, concerned. Is something missing? No, there's too much. The board doesn't need all these equations and technical details. I see. Richard specifically requested all technical details. I have the email if you'd like to review it. A pause. Can you create a simplified version? Of course. Which aspects would you like me to simplify? The neural pathway algorithms, the signal processing mathematics, the quantum probability frameworks. All of it. Make it executive-friendly. I understand. However, the board specifically requested a technical deep dive after our competitor claimed our technology was basic. They'll likely ask detailed questions about implementation. Another pause, longer this time. I'll handle the questions. Of course. Should I remove the proprietary module documentation as well? I know you haven't signed the NDA addendum for that level of access yet. The what? The non-disclosure addendum for proprietary patent-protected modules. Legal requires it for anyone accessing the core algorithm. Patricia should have mentioned it during your onboarding. She hung up. By Wednesday afternoon, the entire executive floor was in crisis mode. I could tell from the urgent meeting requests, the parade of legal personnel, and Patricia from HR practically sprinting past our bunker at 2 p.m. Tom looked up from his workstation. The tsunami warning signs are all there. What tsunami? I asked innocently, focusing on my code review. At 4 p.m., Richard himself appeared in our doorway, something that hadn't happened since we'd been exiled to the basement. His face was red, his usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. Alex, we need to talk. Of course. Should I come to your office? No, Here is fine. He glanced around our cramped space with barely concealed disgust. About tomorrow's presentation. Is there a problem? Sienna feels the technical documentation is too dense. I see. Would you like me to present instead? I know the material can be challenging for someone without a technical background. His jaw tightened. Sienna is perfectly capable. We just need a more streamlined version. Absolutely. Should I create something similar to what marketing uses? Lots of buzzwords, minimal actual information. That's not... He stopped, composed himself. We need something that showcases innovation without getting bogged down in details. I understand. You want me to remove the technical substance from our technical presentation to the board. I want you to make it accessible. Of course, though I should mention, 3 board members have engineering PhDs. Dr. Harrison specifically requested mathematical proofs after the last meeting. Richard's face went from red to purple. Can you make it work? I'll do my best. Should I also prepare backup slides in case the board asks about actual implementation? I'd hate for Sienna to be blindsided by technical questions. That won't be necessary. If you're certain, though perhaps I should attend the meeting as technical support, in case clarification is needed. No. The word came out sharp, final. Sienna will handle it. After he left, Sarah spun in her chair. He knows she's going to crash and burn. He suspects, I corrected, but his ego won't let him admit he hired someone completely unqualified. So what now? Marcus asked. I pulled up the revised presentation I'd already prepared, one that looked simplified but actually contained even more technical landmines. Every simplified diagram had footnotes referencing the complex mathematics. Every executive summary contained terminology that would require explanation. Now we give them exactly what they asked for, I said, hitting send on the new version. A presentation that looks accessible but requires deep technical knowledge to actually present. Thursday at 1:30 p.m., I received another call. Patricia from HR this time. Alex, we need you in conference room A. I thought Sienna was presenting in the main boardroom. There's been a development. Please come immediately. I stood, straightening my blazer not designer, but impeccably tailored. Showtime. My team stood as well. Just me, I said, though I was touched by their loyalty. But keep your phones on. As I walked toward the elevator, I felt the weight of the flash drive in my pocket, the one containing every email, every time-stamped access log, every piece of evidence showing unauthorized access to proprietary technology, the one containing proof that Neurovis had violated the terms of my patent license, the one that would change everything. Conference room A was packed. Board members, legal team, Richard, Patricia, and in the center, Sienna. Looking like she'd been crying. Her perfect makeup was smudged, her confident posture deflated. Alex, Dr. Harrison, the board's technical advisor, stood as I entered. We need to discuss the neural mapping presentation. Of course. Is there a problem? Sienna seems to be having difficulty with some of the technical aspects. I looked at Sienna with practiced concern. Oh no. Which parts are causing trouble? The quantum matrices, the probability frameworks, or is it the proprietary module integration? She glared at me with pure hatred. Dr. Harrison cleared his throat. Actually, we're having trouble understanding how someone could present technology they don't comprehend. More concerning is the legal notification we received an hour ago. I tilted my head. Legal notification. Richard stood. Don't play dumb, Alex. Your lawyer contacted us about patent violations. I said, pulling out the flash drive. Yes, that would be about the unauthorized access to proprietary technology. Should we discuss that now? Or would you prefer to continue with Sienna's presentation first? The room erupted. The chaos in conference room A lasted exactly 30 seconds before Dr. Harrison's voice cut through like a blade. Everyone sit, now. The authority in his tone brooked no argument. Board members settled back into chairs. Richard's blustering ceased, and even Sienna's theatrical sniffling quieted. I remained standing, waiting to be invited to sit. Power dynamics were everything in moments like these. Ms. Quinn, please, take a seat. Dr. Harrison gestured to the chair directly across from him, not at the foot of the table where employees usually sat during board meetings, but at the center, the power position. Before we discuss legal notifications, he continued, his gray eyes never leaving mine, I'd like to understand something. Sienna, can you explain the basic principle behind the neural mapping algorithm? Sienna straightened, her confidence attempting a comeback. Of course, it's about leveraging synaptic connections to create quantum pathways that enable blockchain integration. Stop. Dr. Harrison's hand went up. Alex, same question. The algorithm maps neural signal patterns by analyzing bioelectric impulses at the synaptic level, converting analog neurological data into digital matrices that can predict and replicate neural pathways. The quantum probability framework isn't about actual quantum mechanics. It's a mathematical model that accounts for the uncertainty principle in neural firing patterns. Thank you. He turned to Richard. Would you like to explain why someone who doesn't understand our core technology is presenting it to the board? Richard's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Sienna brings a fresh perspective. A fresh perspective on technology she can't comprehend. Dr. Margaret Chen, the board's CFO, interjected. Richard, we generate 70 million quarterly from this algorithm. You're telling me you put someone who thinks blockchain belongs in neural processing in charge of it? I pulled out my laptop, connecting it to the room's display system. If I may, I'd like to clarify the situation. The first slide appeared a timeline. January 15th. I developed the neural mapping algorithm independently. 3 years before joining Neurovis, patent filed and granted in my name personally. Click. March 3rd. 5 years ago, I joined Neurovis with an exclusive licensing agreement. The company could use my patent with specific conditions. Click. Condition 1. Any modifications to the core algorithm require my written approval. Condition 2. Access to proprietary modules is limited to personnel I personally authorize. Condition 3. Violation of these terms results in immediate license revocation with a 14-day cure period. Click. The screen filled with access logs. Over the past week, someone with Sienna's credentials accessed the proprietary modules 17 times. She was never authorized. This constitutes a breach of contract. Patricia from HR went pale. We didn't know. You didn't read, I corrected. The licensing agreement is part of my employment contract, page 73 through 91. Click. Furthermore, 3 days ago, Sienna shared technical documentation with an external consultant. I displayed the email trail. A consultant who happens to work for our primary competitor, Cortex Dynamics. The room erupted again. This time, Dr. Harrison let it run its course while he studied the evidence on screen. Sienna stood, her face flushed. That's not... I was just getting a second opinion. I needed help understanding. You shared proprietary technology with a competitor because you couldn't understand it yourself. Dr. Chen's voice could have frozen helium. Richard, what exactly were her qualifications for this position? Richard fumbled with his tablet. She had excellent recommendations, innovative ideas about workplace transformation. Was she qualified to handle neural processing technology? Dr. Harrison pressed. She brought other strengths. Answer the question. Richard's shoulders slumped. No. I clicked to the next slide, a letter from my attorney. As of 2 p.m. today, I've initiated license revocation procedures. Neurovis has 14 days to cure the breach. This means removing all unauthorized personnel from access to the technology, paying the specified penalties, and... I paused for effect. Restoring my team to appropriate facilities with full resources, as specified in Section 8.3 of the agreement, patent holder must be provided with adequate resources to maintain and develop the licensed technology. This is extortion, Richard exploded. This is contract law, I replied calmly. You relocated my team to a basement storage facility while giving our workspace to someone unqualified to understand our work. That alone could be considered failure to provide adequate resources. Doctor, Harrison stood. How much is the penalty? I smiled. $5 million for the breach, plus $1 million per day if the cure period expires without resolution. And if we don't agree, Richard demanded, then in 14 days, Neurovis loses the right to use the neural mapping algorithm entirely. Every product running on it becomes illegal to sell. Stock price tanks. Company valuation drops by roughly 70% overnight. Click. The final slide showed a competing offer. Alternatively, Medisynaptics has offered me a position as Chief Technology Officer, with my entire team, full patent rights, and a 40% increase in compensation. They're particularly interested in the new developments we've been working on, developments that, legally, have never been Neurovis property because they were created using my original patent as the foundation. Sienna sank into her chair. I didn't mean I was just trying to... You were trying to fake expertise you didn't have, Dr. Chen said coldly, and Richard enabled it because why exactly? Richard, what was so special about Ms. Vale that you dismantled a successful team for her? The silence stretched uncomfortably. Then Patricia spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. She's his wife's niece. The board members' faces transformed from confusion to fury in seconds. Nepotism, Dr. Harrison said flatly. You destroyed our most profitable division for nepotism. I started packing my laptop. I'll give the board 24 hours to respond to my terms. My lawyer's contact information is in the documentation. Alex, wait. Dr. Chen stood. What would it take for you to stay? I looked around the room at Richard's deflated arrogance, Sienna's ruined mascara, Patricia's career anxiety, and the board members finally understanding what they'd almost lost. Complete autonomy over R&D, Richard's resignation, Sienna's immediate termination, my team restored to proper facilities with a 50% budget increase, and I paused. Written apologies to each of my team members for the disrespect they've endured. That's, Richard started. Less than what you'll lose if I leave, Dr. Harrison finished. Alex, give us an hour. I shook my head. I have a team to get back to. You have my terms and my timeline. 24 hours. As I walked to the door, Dr. Chen called out, the blockchain neural interface, did she really say that? I turned back. She did. She also suggested we pivot to NFT-based consciousness storage. The look of horror on the board's faces was almost worth the week in the basement. Almost. I left them to their deliberations and headed back to my team. The flash drive in my pocket felt lighter now, its contents delivered, but I kept my phone in my hand, already composing a message to my contact at Medisynaptics, just in case. Because while revenge was satisfying, protecting my team and our work was what really mattered, and if Neurovis couldn't see our value, someone else would. The basement bunker felt different when I returned. My team looked up expectantly, and I saw hope in their eyes for the first time in a week. So, Sarah asked. 24 hours, I said. Either they meet our terms, or we walk. Marcus grinned. Our terms. Full restoration, budget increase, written apologies, and the removal of certain executives. Tom whooped. You did it. Not yet, I cautioned. But I made our position clear. Now we wait. Jennifer pulled out a bottle of champagne from her desk drawer. I've been saving this for a special occasion. We haven't won yet, I protested. No, she agreed, popping the cork. But we stood up. That's worth celebrating. As we drank warm champagne from coffee mugs in our basement exile, I thought about Sienna's face when she realized her blockchain empire was built on sand, about Richard's deflation when his nepotism was exposed, about the board's panic when they understood what they'd nearly lost. But mostly, I thought about my team brilliant, loyal, underestimated, and how they'd trusted me to protect them. That trust was worth more than any patent. The board's response came at 11:23 p.m., just 37 minutes before my deadline, not through official channels, but via Dr. Harrison himself, standing outside my apartment building in the rain. May I come in? he asked when I opened the door, water dripping from his usually immaculate coat. I stepped aside. Coffee. Please. We sat at my kitchen table. The patent documents and employment contracts spread between us like battle plans. He looked older than he had in the conference room, the weight of the decision etched in the lines around his eyes. The board voted, he said finally, unanimous, with Richard abstaining. And we accept your terms, all of them. Richard's resignation is effective immediately. Sienna was escorted out at 5 p.m. He pulled out an envelope. The written apologies. Each board member contributed. I didn't open it, not yet. And my team. Facilities is working through the night. Your old space is being restored, plus the additional lab space you requested. The budget increase has been approved, retroactive to the beginning of the quarter. Implementation timeline. You can move back Monday morning. I sipped my coffee, letting him wait. There's something else. He smiled ruefully. You were always too sharp for your own good. Yes, there's more. The board wants to offer you the position of Chief Technology Officer. No. His eyebrows rose. You haven't heard the compensation package. I don't need to. CTO means politics, board meetings, strategic planning sessions with people who think blockchain belongs in neural processing. I'm a researcher and team leader. That's where I create value. Then what do you want? Director of Neural Innovation, reporting directly to the board, not the CEO, complete autonomy over my division, and the right to refuse any executive mandate that compromises our work. That's unprecedented. So was trying to replace me with someone who couldn't spell neural without autocorrect. He laughed, surprising us both. Fair point. I'll take it to the board. But I think they'll agree. We can't afford to lose you. You almost did. I know. He stood, then paused. Can I ask you something personal, not professional? I nodded. Why didn't you just leave when they moved you to the basement? You had options. The Medisynaptics offer was real, wasn't it? I thought about how to answer, then decided on honesty. My team, they trusted me to protect them, to value their work. If I'd left immediately, they'd have been scattered, dismissed, their contributions forgotten. I needed to make sure that when we moved together, and I smiled. I needed Neurovis to understand exactly what they were losing. The revenge was just a bonus. The revenge was justice. There's a difference. After he left, I called my team, conference calling them all despite the late hour. Pack your boxes, I said without preamble. We're going home Monday. The celebration on the other end was loud enough that my neighbor banged on the wall. Saturday morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Alexandra Quinn? The voice was young, uncertain. Yes. This is Ashley Moore. I was supposed to start working under Sienna Vale on Monday, but HR just called and said the position has been eliminated. I remembered seeing Ashley's resume in the pile on Sienna's commandeered desk, fresh from Stanford, specialized in biological computing interfaces, brilliant academic record. Ashley, do you know what happened with Sienna? No, ma'am. Just that there was restructuring. 22 years old, probably turned down other offers for this opportunity, and now hung out to dry by corporate incompetence. I made a decision. Ashley, how do you feel about neural mapping algorithms? I wrote my thesis on optimization patterns in synaptic prediction models. Come to Neurovis Monday at 9 a.m. Ask for the Neural Innovation Division. We have an opening for a junior researcher. But HR says a lot of things. I'll handle them. Just show up. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much. Another one saved from the corporate machinery. Sunday was for packing, not things, but data. Every project, every breakthrough, every line of code my team had written in our basement exile. I also drafted a new policy proposal, transparent attribution for all innovations, mandatory technical competency assessments for technical leadership positions, and protection protocols for research teams. It would probably get watered down by legal, but it was a start. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly, fitting for a homecoming that felt more like a revolution. I arrived at 7 a.m. to find the lights already on in our restored space. Not just restored, transformed. The equipment Sienna had ordered for her innovation lab had been redirected to us. The meditation pods became quiet spaces for intensive coding. The VR stations were repurposed for three-dimensional neural modeling. Even the molecular gastronomy coffee bar had survived, though the barista had been replaced with Tom's beloved Italian machine, Lucia. Marcus was already there, running his hand along his upgraded workstation. They even fixed the window that wouldn't close properly. And added a server room, David called out, his voice echoing from a previously non-existent door. Temperature-controlled, redundant power supplies, the works. One by one, the team arrived, each stopping in the doorway to take in the transformation. Sarah actually smiled a real smile, not her usual sardonic smirk. Jennifer set up the pictures of her daughter in the same spot they'd occupied before our exile. Roberto and Tom immediately began arguing about optimal desk placement. "Boss," Marcus said quietly, "look at this." He handed me a framed document, our original patent filing, signed by all of us, with a small plaque, Neural Innovation Division, where breakthrough happens. "Who?" Dr. Harrison dropped it off this morning, said the board wanted us to know they understood now. At 9 a.m. sharp, Ashley Moore appeared in our doorway, resume in hand and terror in her eyes. "Ms. Quinn, I'm here about the junior researcher position." "Welcome to the team," I said, then turned to the others. "Everyone, meet Ashley. She wrote her thesis on synaptic prediction models. Tom, you're mentoring her." Tom's face lit up. "Really?" "You're ready, Ashley. Hope you like Chinese food and arguing about theoretical mathematics at 3 a.m. Patricia from HR appeared an hour later, looking haggard. "Alex, about the new hire." "Already processed," I said, handing her the completed paperwork I'd prepared over the weekend. "Director of Neural Innovation Hiring Authority, Section 3 of my new contract." She looked at the papers, then at me. "You know Sienna's gone, right? You won." This was never about winning, Patricia. It was about protecting what matters. She nodded slowly. The apologies from the board, were they sufficient? I thought about the handwritten notes, each board member acknowledging their failure to protect valuable employees from executive overreach. Dr. Harrison's had been particularly thoughtful, promising structural changes to prevent future incidents. They were a start. "And Richard Sienna, do you feel vindicated?" I looked around my lab, my team working, laughing, creating, Ashley already deep in conversation with Tom about neural pathway optimization, the coffee machine gurgling contentedly. "I feel like I'm home," I said simply. Patricia left, and I turned back to my work. The neural mapping algorithm pulsed on my screen. Elegant in its complexity, in 2 weeks, Sienna had tried to steal 5 years of innovation. She'd failed because she'd thought the power was in the position, the office, the corporate structure. But real power was in understanding, in creation, in the team that built something from nothing, and the leader who protected them while they did it. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "This is Sienna," I wanted to say. I deleted it unread. Some messages weren't worth receiving. Some apologies came too late. And some people needed to learn that golden pedestals built on other people's work would always crumble. "Hey, boss," Sarah called out. "Ready to change the world?" I pulled up our latest project, neural interfaces for paralyzed patients. Something we'd developed in secret during our basement days. Something that would revolutionize medical technology. Something that had my name on the patent, along with every member of my team. "Always," I replied. "But first, someone order lunch. We've got work to do." The call from Metasynaptics came Tuesday at 3:45 p.m., just as we were settling into our restored workspace. "Alex, it's James Morrison." The familiar voice carried a hint of amusement. "I hear there's been some excitement at Neurovis." James and I had worked together at Intel 15 years ago, before he'd founded Metasynaptics. He was one of the few executives who actually understood the technology his company produced. News travels fast, I said, stepping into the hallway for privacy. When Richard Blackstone gets forcibly retired and his niece gets perp-walked out of a Fortune 500 company, that's front-page tech gossip, but that's not why I'm calling. Oh, my offer still stands. Actually, it's increased. CTO position, your entire team, 60% salary bump, and complete ownership of any patents you develop. I looked through the glass wall at my team. Tom was showing Ashley something on his monitor, her eyes wide with understanding. Marcus and Sarah were bent over a circuit board, arguing good-naturedly about optimization patterns. Jennifer was video calling her daughter during her break, the joy on her face radiant. James. There's more. We're about to announce a partnership with Johns Hopkins for neural prosthetics, unlimited research budget, no corporate oversight. You'd report directly to me, and I promise no blockchain enthusiasts in sight. It was everything I'd wanted a week ago, everything I'd threatened Neurovis with. I need to think about it. Of course, but Alex, don't wait too long. The board wants an answer by Friday. After I hung up, I found Sarah waiting in the hallway. Metasynaptics, she asked. How did you... Your poker face needs work. Plus, James Morrison isn't exactly subtle. He's been posting articles about neural innovation all week, everyone mentioning how certain companies don't value their talent. We walked back into the lab together. The whole team was watching now, pretending to work, but clearly aware something was happening. Team meeting, I announced. Conference room, now. Once everyone was seated, I laid it out. The Metasynaptics offer, the promises, the opportunities. I held nothing back. The question is, I finished, do we stay or do we go? Tom spoke first, uncharacteristically serious. What does Neurovis say about matching the offer? They don't know about it yet. But they would match it, David said. After last week, they can't afford to lose us. It's not about the money, Jennifer interjected. It's about trust. They threw us away the moment someone younger and shinier came along. But they learned their lesson, Marcus argued. The apologies, the resources, the autonomy, they're trying to make it right. Ashley raised her hand tentatively. I know I'm new, but may I say something? I nodded. I had 3 offers out of Stanford. I picked Neurovis because of Sienna's reputation for innovation. When that fell through, I thought my career was over before it started. But you gave me a chance, and in 2 days here, I've learned more than I did in my entire final year. She paused. The question isn't whether Neurovis deserves you. It's whether you can do more good here or somewhere else. Roberto leaned forward. We need to vote. But first, Alex should meet with the board. See what they're really offering for the future, not just as an apology for the past. The meeting was arranged for Thursday at 10 a.m. This time, I walked into the boardroom with confidence, my team's trust like armor. Dr. Harrison, Dr. Margaret Wells, who'd replaced the Chen in my imagining, and 3 other board members sat waiting. The CEO chair remained empty. They hadn't found Richard's replacement yet. Alex, Dr. Harrison began, we've heard rumors about external offers. From Metasynaptics, I confirmed. CTO position, 60% raise for my entire team, complete patent ownership. Dr. Wells whistled low. That's substantial. It is. What would it take for you to stay? Dr. Harrison asked bluntly. I'd prepared for this. First, structural changes. No executive can reassign technical teams without board approval and technical advisory consent. Second, an innovation fund under my direct control, $10 million annually, minimum. Third, my team gets equity participation in any products we develop. Fourth, we establish a technical fellowship program, bringing in young talent like Ashley Moore without executive interference. And personally, Dr. Wells asked, I keep my current title. I don't want to be CTO, but I want a seat on the technical advisory board and veto power over any technical leadership hires. The board members exchanged glances. There's one more thing, I added. I want Neurovis to establish a Women in Technology mentorship program, named after Marie Curie, not some executive's wife. Real mentorship, real opportunities, real power. Dr. Harrison smiled. You've thought this through. My team trusted me to. Give us an hour. I returned to the lab to find my team pretending to work while obviously waiting for news. The hour felt like a day. When my phone rang, I put it on speaker. Alex? Dr. Harrison's voice filled the room. We accept all your terms. Additionally, we're offering you a founding membership in our new Innovation Council, which will have direct board oversight of all technical decisions. I looked at my team. Sarah nodded. Marcus gave a thumbs up. Tom was grinning. Jennifer mouthed, "Stay." Even Ashley, our newest member, was nodding enthusiastically. We accept, I said. The celebration was quieter than our champagne toast in the basement, but somehow more meaningful. We'd won more than our space back. We'd won respect, protection, and the power to ensure this never happened again. That evening, I called James Morrison. I'm staying at Neurovis, I told him. I figured. You always were too loyal for your own good. Not loyal, strategic. We just restructured how the entire company handles technical talent. That's a bigger win than running away would have been. Fair enough, but Alex, the offer stands, always. Friday morning, I stood in our lab, watching my team work. The neural prosthetic project was ahead of schedule. Ashley had already identified 3 optimization opportunities Tom had missed. The patent paperwork for our latest innovation sat on my desk, everyone's name properly attributed. My phone buzzed, a LinkedIn notification. Sienna Vale has updated her profile, seeking new opportunities in blockchain innovation consulting. I deleted the notification and turned back to my work. Richard Blackstone had sent a letter of apology, flowery and excessive, clearly written by a lawyer. It went straight to the shredder. But on my wall, next to our framed patent, hung the handwritten apologies from each board member, not because I needed the vindication, but as a reminder, respect isn't given, it's demanded. Protection isn't offered, it's seized. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't leaving, it's staying and changing everything. Boss, Tom called out. Ready to see the new neural mapping visualization. It's going to revolutionize how we understand synaptic connections. Show me, I said, moving to his station where the rest of the team was gathering. This was what mattered, not the corporate games or the power plays or even the vindication. This the work, the team, the innovation that would change lives. We'd been tested by fire and emerged stronger. The Golden Girl was gone. Her blockchain dreams evaporated. The executives who'd enabled her were scattered to the wind. And we remained, creating the future one breakthrough at a time. You know what? I said to my team, let's file that patent, but this time, let's add Ashley's name to it. She earned it. Ashley's eyes filled with tears. But I've only been here a week. And you've already contributed. That's how we do things here. Real innovation, real attribution, real respect. As I watched Ashley's name being added to what would become another multi-million-dollar patent, I thought about Sienna's Golden Girl title, Fool's Gold, as it turned out. We were the real gold, and now everyone knew it. 6 months later, I stood in the renovated auditorium at Neurovis, preparing to present our neural prosthetic breakthrough to an audience of investors, medical professionals, and tech journalists. The lights dimmed, and I approached the podium with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you've earned every step. Good morning, I began, my voice steady. Today, my team and I are going to show you how neural mapping technology will give paralyzed patients their lives back. The presentation was flawless, not because of flashy graphics or buzzword-heavy slides, but because every claim was backed by data, every innovation properly attributed, every team member's contribution acknowledged. Tom presented his optimization algorithms. Sarah demonstrated the hardware integration. Marcus explained the accessibility features that would make the technology available to underserved communities. Ashley, now 6 months into her role and already holding 2 patents, showed the predictive modeling that set our approach apart. When we finished, the standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, at the reception, Dr. Harrison approached me with someone I didn't recognize, a sharp-looking woman in her 50s with eyes that missed nothing. "Alex, I'd like you to meet Dr. Catherine Palmer, our new CEO." She shook my hand firmly. "I've been following your work since the patent dispute. Impressive strategy." It wasn't strategy, it was survival. "The best strategies always are," she smiled. "I wanted to thank you. The structural changes you demanded have transformed how we operate. Technical talent retention is up 40%. Innovation output has doubled. And that mentorship program you insisted on, we have 300 applicants for 20 spots. Good problems to have." "Indeed. I also wanted you to know Richard Blackstone tried to sue for wrongful termination. The case was dismissed yesterday. Apparently, promoting unqualified family members violates most employment contracts." I felt no satisfaction in his continued downfall, only relief that he couldn't hurt anyone else. As the reception wound down, I found myself on the balcony overlooking the Silicon Valley skyline. The sun was setting, painting everything gold, real gold, not the fool's kind. Marcus joined me, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Remember when we were in that basement, thinking our careers were over? Feels like a lifetime ago." Sienna sent another email to the company address. "Wants to collaborate on a new venture. Something about AI-powered lifestyle coaching." I laughed. "Delete it." "Already did. But Alex, I've been thinking, what you did standing up to them, protecting us, that took guts. It took desperation, and a patent with my name on it." "No," he said seriously. "It took believing we were worth fighting for. Not everyone would have done that." Sarah appeared in the doorway. "Group photo time. Can't have a triumph without documenting it." We gathered on the balcony, my original team plus Ashley, plus 3 new researchers we'd hired through the mentorship program. As we arranged ourselves, I noticed something. We were standing in our old office space, the one Sienna had claimed for her innovation lab. The meditation pods were gone, replaced with actual equipment. The juice bar had become a proper break room where real work got discussed over coffee and leftover Thai food. "Everyone ready?" the photographer asked. "Wait," Tom said, pulling out a small golden trophy, clearly a cheap toy from a dollar store. "For our boss, the real golden girl?" "Absolutely not," I protested, but they were already pushing it into my hands. "You earned it," Jennifer said. "You took their insult and turned it into our victory." The photo captured us laughing, the stupid trophy held high, the sunset turning everything warm and bright behind us. It would join the wall of team photos, a reminder of how we'd refused to be diminished. Later, alone in my office, my real office, not the basement I pulled up the patent database, our neural prosthetic had been approved that morning, 15 names on it, every single person who'd contributed. My name was there, but not first. Tom's optimization had earned him that spot. My computer chimed. An email from James Morrison at Metasynaptics. "Saw the presentation live stream. Outstanding work. My offer remains open, but I'm starting to think you're exactly where you need to be." He was right. 6 months ago, they'd tried to replace me with their golden girl, someone who sparkled on the surface but had no substance beneath. They'd thought innovation was about image, about disruption for its own sake, about blockchain and buzzwords and meditation pods. But real innovation happened in basements and boardrooms alike. As long as the right people were in them, it happened when talent was recognized, protected, and empowered. It happened when leaders fought for their teams instead of their own advancement. I looked at the cheap golden trophy Tom had given me, sitting on my desk next to the real patents and awards. Then I looked at the email Sienna had sent, still in my trash folder, begging for a second chance, claiming she'd been set up to fail. She hadn't been set up. She'd been elevated beyond her competence and crashed back to earth. The only difference between her fall and mine was that I'd owned something they couldn't take away: knowledge, innovation, and the legal rights to both. My phone buzzed, a text from Ashley. "Staying late to run more simulations. This new approach could increase response time by 30%. Is that okay? I smiled, remembering my own late nights as a junior researcher, when every discovery felt like touching the future. Lab's yours until security kicks you out at midnight. Document everything. And Ashley, put your name first on the report. You've earned it. I stood to leave, gathering my things for the night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new politics, new people who thought they deserved what we'd built. But tonight, we were exactly where we needed to be. The golden girl they'd chosen had turned to brass and blown away. The team they'd discarded had become the foundation of their future. And me, I'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying those who wronged you, it's succeeding so completely that they have to watch you shine from the ashes of their mistakes. The patent on my wall caught the last ray of sunlight, my name gleaming in the fading light. Not the first name anymore. I'd started adding my team members as primary inventors on newer patents, but they're permanent, protected by law and precedent. They'd chosen their golden girl over me, but I owned the patent. And in the end, that made all the difference. Thank you so much for listening to this story of corporate revenge and sweet justice. I hope Alex's journey reminded you that your worth isn't determined by office politics or shallow judgments, but by the value you create and the people you lift up along the way. Where are you listening to this story from? Drop a comment and let me know. I love connecting with listeners from around the world. If this tale of standing up to corporate bullies resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts about workplace justice in the comments below. Have you ever had your own patent moment where knowledge became power? I'd love to hear about it.